Part 42. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 411. After a simple initiation ceremony, Su Xian assigned a room to the shocked Yu Ya girl, and used the technique of enlightenment to help the disciples improve their cultivation again. Now he is only one step away from the origin of the third stage of the King Realm. Some steps in the plan to launch a counter-attack on Lauren Star have already been implemented, and the Lord Harmony faction led by Moira is very cooperative in this regard. They have begun to look for opportunities to sneak into Lawland Star and lay the foundation for the main counter-attack force to take root in Lawland Star. Su Xian also made a special observation. Since the war stopped, the frequency of world passages has significantly slowed down. This further verified his previous guess that the integration of the two worlds was indeed related to the common state of life forms in the two worlds. This also worried him. Under such conditions, he needed to pay more attention to the casualties in both worlds, and it was best to capture the Lowland Star without any bloodshed. After the disciples dispersed, Su Xian came to the small courtyard garden. In a short period of time, the world's saplings seemed to have grown a lot taller. The saplings that were originally no taller than a carp's legs and could only be planted in flower pots have now become towering trees. The height exceeds the wall of Prince Shuiyu's mansion. No wonder Xylee hasn't played with World Tree recently. Owner. World Tree's voice sounded in his mind. The recent turmoil in the origin of this world has accelerated my growth a lot. If I continue to grow at this rate, the time it takes for me to enter the maturity stage will be greatly shortened. Su Xian frowned. If the two worlds continue to integrate at this speed, I'm afraid they will be completely integrated within a few years. At that time, there will be another great turmoil in the world. After all this, World Tree is the only beneficiary of the integration of the two worlds. Master, you seem to have a special aura about you. World Tree spoke again, seemingly a little excited. Su Xian immediately understood what World Tree was talking about. He took out a rough chaos stone and said, "Is this what you are talking about?" "Yes, yes, yes." World Tree's body trembled. "Master, is this the legendary chaos rough stone? Can you give it to me? If I can eat 100 such chaos rough stones, I will reach maturity immediately. When the World Tree reaches maturity, it means becoming a god. With its racial characteristics, it can open up a world alone. Su Xian wants it too. It's a pity that this kind of thing is unrealistic. Chaos rough stones are too difficult to obtain. Even if the system returns them, it will consume a lot of luck points. If you collect 100 yuan, you will probably drain the system dry. Master, if you give me the Chaos Stone, I can help you even more. The World Tree cannot conceal the inner desire. Chaos Rough Stone is the best nutrition for it, especially in its infancy. Even if it eats one piece, it can grow a lot. Tell me about it." The World Tree has indeed helped Su Xian a lot, and it is also his biggest trump card. It's just that the current situation is tense, and any resources need to be utilized rationally, especially rare items like Chaos Rough Stones that are hard to find in both worlds. Investment must yield immediate results, and helping Yggdrasil grow can only be considered a long-term investment, and he can't afford to wait. Master, as long as I grow longer, my branches can play the role of establishing a world formation in a small area. As one of the best plant-based life forms even in the chaotic universe, the role of the World Tree cannot be just to guard a small city. As it continues to grow, the branches, leaves, fruits, and roots of the World Tree have unimaginable functions. A small-scale world formation. Su Xian had an idea in his mind. If the strength of the formation can reach the level of a large protective formation, it will greatly promote the next plan to attack Lowland Star. Master, I will simulate the strength of the formation to show you. Seeing that Su Xian was inclined to agree, Yggdrasil immediately started performing vigorously. It simulates a magic circle. Su Xian felt carefully that this formation was indeed comparable to a royal city protection formation. Not bad. How many formations can you support with your ability? World Tree said excitedly, as long as the master is willing to feed a chaos rough stone, I can support at least 7 such arrays at the same time. But there are prerequisites for establishing these magic circles. The branches must be inserted into the soil within 7 days after leaving my body, and they need to absorb the power of the world for 14 days, and they cannot be moved during this period. After all, it is just a branch, so there are still restrictions. Su Xian didn't care too much. These restrictions were nothing. With the World Magic Circle, the casualties of Blue Star soldiers could be greatly reduced. It is also a disguised form of weakening the fusion speed of the two worlds. Ken. After weighing it, Su Xian threw a chaotic rough stone returned by the system to World Tree, and the latter easily sucked it into his trunk. Thank you, Master. World Tree's voice became lazy. I may need to sleep for a while to absorb it. Su Xian saw that the trunk of the World Tree was rising visibly to the naked eye. I'm afraid it won't be long before the leafy World Tree can cover the entire inner city airspace of Dingai King City. Wait a minute, don't sleep yet. Su Xian thought of another question. Since the World Tree can easily absorb the Chaos Rough Stone, is there a way to give the Chaos Rough Stone its properties? That's the real big improvement. Is there any way for me to give the Chaos Rough Stone its exclusive properties? Sorry Master, I can't do it. World Tree shook his torso and seemed to think of something again, but maybe your other spiritual pet can do it. You mean stupid penguin? Su Xian almost forgot that he still had such a spiritual pet. The presence of the silly penguin is really too low. He just sleeps, goes to work for 1 hour, and rests for a whole year. But the stupid penguin is indeed powerful. The stupid penguin that can copy, recombine all matter, and put its own label on it may really be able to give the Chaos Rough Stone its properties. In a flash, Su Xian arrived at the room of the silly penguin. Bang! Kicked over. The stupid penguin slowly wakes up. With Su Xian's current strength, he could kick the stupid penguin without causing any damage. Master, do you have to work again? I'm so tired. The silly penguin looked at Su Xian sleepily, sensed the time again, and immediately complained, Master, you are so evil. I have only had a break for more than a year, and I have to go to work again. Su Xian. The silly goose still has not experienced the beatings from society. Help me do something. Su Xian didn't waste any time and directly took out the Chaos Rough Stone. I want to give this Chaos Rough Stone its properties. Can I do it? The silly penguin just glanced at it, then confidently straightened out his white belly and said with a smile. I have already said that as long as you are strong enough, Master, nothing is impossible. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 412. The stupid penguin is very confident. Anyway, it only provides a platform, and Su Xian has to do the hard work. Come on, Master. The stupid penguin yawned. It's time to get off work after finishing the work. Su Xian wanted to beat it. However, this guy's defense is terrible, so he will just use the stupid penguin as a meat shield in the future. Make the best use of it and let the penguin experience the exploitation of capital. He put his hand on the stupid penguin's head, and the master and pet consciousness connected. Thoughts turned. Su Xian was brought to the creative space that was completely dominated by himself again. Among the ideological items, he grabbed 5 chaos stones, 2 of which were obtained from the Goblin King Kuro and the Dark Elf Prophet Daisy. The other 3 were returned by the system. Regarding the distribution of the 5 chaos stones, he already had a plan in his mind. The 3 stones returned by the system will not be returned again if they are given to disciples again, so 1 will be used by myself, 1 will be given to Su Ying, and the last one will be given to the third disciple Xianyuan Qingqing. Alchemy technology will still be a crucial link in the next war, and the Chaos Stone may help Qingqing make another breakthrough in the field of alchemy. The Chaos Stone obtained from the Goblin King Kuro is the smallest one, and it is just right to give it to Xiaoqi, who is still young but has the ability to predict. The last one can be given to any disciple, but after weighing it again and again, he is still ready to give it to Xiaoli. First, because the mystery of Xiaoli's life experience has not been revealed, and some trump cards are needed to deal with the future situation. Second, Xiaoli's own combat power is the strongest among the current disciples, and he can control the Chaos Stone to the greatest extent. All mental power is mobilized. Su Xian held the Chaos Stone with one hand, and it broke into particles bit by bit. This is not a real shattering, but just the ideological shattering in the creation space, so that Su Xian, the creator, can give it characteristics. Under Su Xian's guidance, the particles of Chaos Stone turned into dark whirlpools one after another. The whirlpool swallowed up all the objects around it, and even light could not escape. This is the characteristic that Su Xian gave to this Chaos Stone, which is called black hole. With the special celestial body in the chaotic universe as a reference, it is given the characteristic of swallowing everything. The dark whirlpool began to merge, and the broken particles gathered again, reorganizing bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, all the Chaos Stone particles were finally aggregated. At this time, the color of the Chaos Stone had changed, from the original gray color to the dark ink color, and there were vortex-shaped lines on it. Chaos Stone black hole, the characteristics were given. Su Xian did not pause and immediately grabbed the second Chaos Stone. Shattered. The particles turned into thousands of stars and reflected. The stars intertwined, seemingly scattered, but reflected time and space, many roads in the past and the future. The particles were sometimes blurred and sometimes clear. This is the second characteristic that Su Xian wants to give, similar to Daisy's Chaos Stone knowing destiny, but he thinks the word knowing destiny is too absolute. Daisy didn't know her destiny until the last moment of her life. The future is full of changes. Who dares to claim to know destiny? The word prophecy is heavy enough. The stars are reorganized, and the second Chaos Stone is given characteristics. After completing these, Su Xian already felt a little tired. If it were the previous him, he would have been exhausted long ago. Things like creation consume too much energy. Then the third Chaos Stone. This time the stone no longer turns into a particle, but into irregular objects one after another. These objects continue to merge, reorganize, split again, and continue to reorganize. And so on. It presents countless changes of the same object. This is the third characteristic that Su Xian wants to give fusion. It is also tailor-made for the third child Xianyuan Qingqing. Alchemy experiments are largely about the feasibility of continuous fusion, reorganization, differentiation, and reaction between experimental objects. But all of these require a lot of time to verify. Even risking her life for it. Xianyuan Qingqing was able to become the youngest alchemy grandmaster in history because she had the best time, place, and people. The 10,000 poison body ensured that she could conduct various poisonous experiments unscrupulously, and the formulas given to her by Su Xian also opened her mind to the greatest extent. In addition, in the war years, the two alchemy grandmasters Peixiu and Aurora also taught her many experiences without reservation. Qingqing achieved this not only because she stood on the shoulders of giants, but also because the pair of invisible wings behind her were the key to her flying so high. Then the appearance of Chaos Stone fusion can be described as forcibly gathering the wind between heaven and earth and sending her soaring up to 90,000 miles. Chaos Stone fusion will allow Xianyuan Qingqing to achieve more impossibilities in alchemy. Su Xian grabbed the fourth Chaos Stone again. The stone disappeared in his hand. He held it in his hand without any hindrance, and when he released his hand, the stone appeared again. It constantly switches between reality and illusion. Lin Suiying's swordsmanship of Mirror Flower Water Moon is based on the transformation between reality and illusion, which is unpredictable and kills people invisibly in the beautiful artistic conception of charming eyes. False and real, true and false. Lin Suiying has been pursuing the step of switching between reality and illusion at will. With this Chaos Stone, her strength will definitely be greatly improved. However, this time Su Xian did not turn the Chaos Stone into a stone, but compressed it into a ring. The characteristics of 4 Chaos Stones were given in succession. Su Xian's mental power was almost at its limit. The last one. The 5th one was made for Xyli. Su Xian knew Xyli's shortcomings very well, that is, he was too young, his character was not good enough, and he lacked combat experience. Facing the weak, Xyli could naturally crush them all the way. When encountering a strong person with equal strength, Xyli would inevitably be suppressed, but he did not intend to use the Chaos Stone to increase Xyli's combat experience and skills. That kind of thing still depends on one's own understanding. Since Xyli's power is already strong enough, let Xyli's power go to the next level. Abandon all the fancy things and strive to decide the world with one blow. This Chaos Stone was named Absolute Power by Su Xian. So far, all 5 Chaos Stones have been given attributes. Su Xian's mental power has been almost completely overdrawn, and his consciousness quickly left the creation space. Plop! The moment his consciousness left him, the silly penguin fell down and fell asleep. There was a huge bubble floating on the tip of his nose. If this silly penguin could dream, he might be playing the game of creating the world every day. Su Xian was also very tired, and he also fell asleep on the bed. When he woke up again, it was 10 days later. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 413. Walk out of the room. The first person Su Xian saw was Xyli. Xyli was dressed very festively today, like a lucky red koi. Teacher, you finally slept enough. Seeing Su Xian come out, Xyli jumped in front of him. Mom has been waiting for you these days. Su Xian was stunned. What are you waiting for me for? Waiting for you to marry her. Xyli smiled and said, you said last time that you would marry Mom after you came back. Don't think that Mom didn't say it, it's because she was afraid that you would be under pressure. But you can't disappoint Mom's expectations. She waved her hand, motioning Su Xian to squat, and then leaned close to Su Xian's ear. Secretly tell you, I see Mom smiling at the mirror every day these days. She puts on lipstick and rouge, but Mom didn't do this before. Su Xian was a little moved. She and Suiying supported each other and went all the way, going through ups and downs, and also going through life and death. They are an inseparable part of each other. Marriage is a natural thing. In this case, it was in line with Xyli's wishes. While the preparations for the attack on Lowland Star were still in progress, the wedding was held. You little brat. Su Xian smiled and touched Xyli's head, saying, don't worry, you don't have to worry about this kind of thing. I will prepare it. He, as a daughter, I should help too. Xyli looked obliged. For my mother's happy life, I have sent out your wedding invitations. Su Xian. How could this little guy be more anxious than the 2 parties involved? He suspected that if he came out a little later, Xyli would be able to take care of his and Suiying's wedding. I'll go see your mother. Su Xian flashed and came to Lin Suiying's room. The latter hurriedly put away the bottles and jars on the table, with unsmeared lipstick still on the corners of her mouth, and her eyebrows slightly frowned. You finally got enough sleep? There was a bit of complaint in her tone. I didn't get enough sleep. Su Xian smiled and said, It's just that I'm missing a beautiful woman in my dream. I feel exhausted physically and mentally. I still have to sleep with you. You're so talkative. Lin Suiying glanced at him, you lazy guy. You even have to send Xylee to send out the invitations. You only think about that kind of thing every day. This sentence made Su Xian pause. He couldn't help but give Xylee a thumbs up in his heart. He is really a thoughtful little cotton-padded jacket and a little assist expert. While organizing the wedding, he also pushed all the credit to him. Xylee has put a lot of effort into marrying his mother off. Let's go out for a walk. Su Xian took Lin Suiying's hand, wiped off the lipstick residue on the corner of her mouth, and walked out together. Why is the world tree growing so fast these days? Lin Suiying looked at the crown of the world tree covering the entire Shuiyu palace outside, and was very curious. These days, the world tree grows several meters taller almost every day. With the blessing of the world tree, the energy of the Shuiyu palace has become so rich that the animals and plants in the entire small courtyard are almost becoming spirits. Some of the animals and plants have even awakened their intelligence. Feed it some powerful fertilizer. Su Xian sensed the state of the world tree. It is still sleeping and has not evolved to the next stage. Only when it evolves to the next stage can he take the world tree branches that can condense the magic circle from the world tree. What fertilizer is so powerful? Lin Suiying was curious. You know, Su Xian was able to kill the demigod with the help of the world tree seedlings that were less than 1 meter high. Now that the world tree has grown to this extent, I am afraid that it can overturn the entire royal city in a moment. I have been thinking about how to catch up with him day and night. But now it is getting farther and farther away. She was worried, but Su Xian was laughing. I'll feed you some later, and I guarantee you'll become stronger. What do you mean by feeding? That's so ugly. I don't want it. Lin Suiying leaned on Su Xian's shoulder. The two walked out of the palace without hiding their whereabouts. Their loving appearance made others envious. I'm telling the truth. Su Xian smiled deeply. The chaos stone swallowed by the world tree and the wedding ring he prepared are indeed essentially the same. I don't believe it. Lin Suiying just thought Su Xian was joking. The two walked from the palace to the busy street, causing a lot of exclamations. Look, it's King Qinji and King Shuiyu. This is the first time I've met them on the street in Dingai Wangchang. A handsome man and a beautiful woman, a fairy couple, I envy them. Now Su Xian and Lin Suiying are both world-famous figures. Countless people regard them as idols, and the two of them becoming a couple is even more praised as a good story for all ages. There are not many examples of husband and wife being handed down from generation to generation. Facing the enthusiastic people of the royal city, Su Xian and Lin Suiying were helpless and could only hide their bodies so that they could walk calmly in the streets and alleys. Accustomed to the cruelty of war, returning to the lights of thousands of homes full of fireworks, the two of them rarely felt so relaxed. Enjoying the simple warmth, the two of them visited Dingai Royal City in one day. The sun was setting. They walked to the end of the city wall of the royal city. Suiying. Su Xian clenched his fist with one hand, put the fist hole close to his right eye, and looked at the sunset in the distance through the narrow fist hole. Huh. Lin Suiying was puzzled. Today's sunset seems different. Su Xian was looking at it very seriously. Nothing is different. The red clouds in the sky were beautiful, but Lin Suiying could not see any difference. You are looking at it the wrong way. You should look at it the way I do. Su Xian laughed. Childish. Lin Suiying said with disdain, but her hand had already clenched into a fist, and then she put it in front of her eyes and looked at the sunset again through the fist. Well, it seems to be the same. She curled her lips, no change at all. Tell me what you want to do. I am not a little girl who is easy to fool. No, it's still not right. Su Xian smiled, maybe it's your hand. Lin Suiying raised her eyebrows and pretended to be angry, How can there be so many problems? You are deliberately playing tricks on me, right? Before she finished speaking, she had already pulled Su Xian's hand in front of her eyes and warned angrily, "If you lie to me again, you will be dead." Putting Su Xian's clenched fist close to her, Lin Suiying really saw something different this time. It was a faint circle. It seemed to encircle the entire sunset, which was extremely beautiful. There seemed to be words engraved on the circle. It was very blurry, unclear, but familiar. It was like an illusion. After staring for a long time, she finally saw it clearly. It was clearly her own name and Su Xian's name, as well as a heart symbol. Su Xian Lin Suiying. The sunset kept shrinking in her eyes, as if something hit her eyes. Her eye sockets became moist, and crystal tears rolled in her eyes. It was not an illusion that encircled the sunset. It was a ring. Su Xian's gentle voice sounded in her ears. "Suiying, marry me." "I do." Lin Suiying raised her head and suddenly threw herself into Su Xian's arms, crying like a pear blossom in the rain. Every scene they had spent 3 years together seemed to be frozen at this moment. It turned into a beautiful background for the two of them hugging each other under the sunset. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 414. The wedding of Qinji King Su Xian and Shuiya King was inevitable, but unexpected. Before receiving the invitation, no one thought that the wedding of the two, which was enough to attract the world's attention, would be held on such a day. The war to counterattack Lulan Star was about to begin. The two chose to get married on the eve of the war, which was really puzzling, but everyone could only hold a blessing mentality. This wedding did not invite too many people, only some relatively familiar relatives and friends were invited. Otherwise, with Su Xian and Lin Suiying's status in Blue Star, I am afraid that the entire Shuiya Palace would not be able to accommodate so many people. In the early morning, Shuiya Palace turned into a festive red. The world tree that covered the sky was also hung with lanterns and ribbons, reflecting the entire Dingai King city like a red ocean. The periphery of the palace was full of enthusiastic people, and the high points in the city were also full of people. Looking at the direction of Shuiya Palace from afar, everyone wanted to get some of the joy of the newlyweds. In the decorated Shuiya Palace, guests were eagerly waiting. Their eyes fell on the newlyweds who were walking slowly, their eyes full of amazement. In the past, Su Xian's clothes were more casual, mostly pure black, pure white or dark blue clothes. Today, he was dressed up, and his ancient red groom suit was quite dazzling. Coupled with his own temperament, he was like a perfect person carved by nature, and he could be said to be unparalleled in the world. But more attention was focused on Lin Suiying. She was wearing a bright red dress, a phoenix crown and a bridal robe. The joy of the wedding washed away the indifference of the past aquamarine, and the blushing clouds danced between her cheeks. Her beautiful face, which was already stunning, looked even more charming and moving under the rendering of the red clouds. She looked forward, with a pair of dimples on her cheeks, her beautiful eyes were full of brilliance, and her red lips were filled with a faint smile. The colorful flowers on the scene were all eclipsed by this smile. Today is the most beautiful moment for my mother. Xiao Li covered her mouth with her eyes, and she wanted to kiss her mother, but she knew that the protagonists today were the teacher and her mother. She had to restrain herself. In front of the crowd, other disciples also witnessed the sacred wedding of the teacher and his wife with joyful smiles. Even Lao Ba Wuxin, who never communicated with others, was watching from a distance. The only absent disciple Zhangmu was replaced by Yin Xiaoshuang. The teacher is also very handsome today. Xianyu and Qingqing smiled and said, "In the whole world, I am afraid that only the teacher's wife can enjoy such a gentle smile from the teacher at this moment. The strong are matched with the strong, and the weak are matched with the weak. Indeed, only the teacher's wife is worthy of the teacher's son," Xiaokong exclaimed. "You are wrong. Miao Tian smiled and said, love depends on fate. When the teacher was weak before, didn't the teacher's wife protect him properly? Sometimes things between two people are destined. Fifth brother, you are not right either. Old Six said deliriously, according to the large amount of human emotional information I have consulted, you humans often compare women to tigers. Is this considered stepping into the tiger's den? Shut up, you old Six. Before he finished speaking, Miao Tian covered old Six's mouth. This guy didn't understand human emotions at all. Although what he said made some sense, he couldn't say it here. Xiao Qi remained silent and said nothing. Looking at the backs of the teacher and the teacher's wife, the red carpet under her feet seemed to have turned into a sea of stars. She saw a more distant and vague future. She silently said in her heart, "Teacher, teacher's wife, you will be fine." Crescent Girl was the most curious among the disciples. After she came to the new world, she saw many new things, but it was her first time to come into contact with the concept of marriage. Such a sacred ceremony touched her heartstrings. She held the doll, looking forward to it, thinking that when she grows up, she will get married, marry a man like her teacher. In the corner, Yin Xiaoshuang, with white hair, laughed and cried. Mewtwo, did you see it? Crystal tears ran across her cheeks and condensed into frost and fell to the ground. Teacher and master's wife are married, when can you come back? I miss you so much, and I want you to marry me home. Not only the disciples sighed, but other guests also had their own thoughts. Tian Baiyu, Moila, King Wuan, Pei Shiu, De Shenjiang, Lin Weiwei, Xian Yuan Dali, Li Xin Chen and other friends who were familiar with the two were all present. Of course, there were more blessings besides sighing. Su Xian's rise was still like a dream in their hearts, so shocking that they still felt incredible when they woke up. Who would have thought that Su Xian, who was teased and given the title of Soft Rice King, would actually marry the world-famous beauty Lin Suying? As everyone chatted and laughed, Su Xian and Lin Suying had already walked hand in hand on the red carpet. Facing the blessings from the guests, the two responded with happy smiles. As for the elder's seat at the end of the red carpet, there was only one person sitting alone. Su Xian had no relatives in this world, and Lin Suying's only elder was Grandma Lin. Do not worship heaven and earth, only parents. After the greetings and tea, Su Xian and Lin Suying turned sideways and performed the husband and wife ceremony, both with a strong smile on their faces. All things in the world disappeared, and at this moment, only you are in my eyes. The guests cheered and blessed, and the house was filled with a joyful atmosphere. Xiao Li, come here. Lin Suying waved her hand and called over Xiao Li, who was laughing the most happily in the audience. If Xiao Li, the little Yu Lao, hadn't been the one to pull the strings about their marriage, I'm afraid it will take another year and a half to get anything done. Mom, teacher, congratulations. Xiao Li was wearing bright red clothes and had a smile on his face. The guests laughed and said, I'm still calling you teacher, it's time to call me daddy. Xiao Li grinned, without any stage fright, looked up at Su Xian, and called out sweetly, Dad. So good. Su Xian accepted it calmly and patted Xiao Li's head lovingly. Holding Xiao Li in his arms at this moment, he actually felt a blood connection, and his heart beat for a long time before gradually calming down. Looking at Xiao Li again, he is still smiling so innocently. The lively feast lasted from noon to dusk, and the sky gradually darkened. The guests left one by one with satisfaction. Only Su Xian and Lin Suying were left in the small courtyard. Under the moonlight, Lin Suying, slightly drunk, told the story of that year. Husband, do you know the origin of Xiao Li's name? I don't know. Su Xian has always been curious about the name Li Xiaoli, but he never asked more. Tonight, Lin Suying finally took the initiative to speak. Back then, I was taught by my teacher. After breaking through the feudal realm, I rushed to the battlefield of the two realms and saw the will left by that senior. She guided me to find the little carp that was just an egg at the time. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 415. Is the little carp an egg? Su Xian was stunned. There are indeed very few blood-derived factors in the little carp that do not belong to the human race, but at least part of the bloodline belongs to the human race, right? Why did it turn into an egg? I don't know how to explain it either. Lin Suying said, but I did see her crawl out of the eggshell with my own eyes. She had no alienation characteristics when she was born, and she has not had any alienation phenomena over the years. Perhaps the eggshell is just a protective tissue formed to protect the young carp. Su Xian nodded and could only attribute the reason to this. The name Xyli was chosen by me. I hope she can bring luck to Blue Star and me. As for the surname Li, I made it up. Because the senior nine-tailed fox's name is Ali, I took the homophony of Ri and changed it to Li. After returning from the battlefield of the two worlds, I claimed that Xyli was my daughter. At first, I just wanted to protect her, but after so many years of getting along with her, I have already regarded Xyli as my own. Lin Suying sighed, from now on, Xyli will be our daughter. No matter what the future holds, we must protect her. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt her. Su Xian's tone was full of firmness, which gradually calmed Lin Suying's anxious heart. The two sat under the moonlight and talked about their future retirement life after peace. There was sudden movement from behind. Su Xian smiled and said, "The little guy is up again." After the words fell, Xiao Li had already walked up to the two of them, staring at them blankly with his big eyes, as if his parents were not living up to expectations and their children were very angry. Ahem. Xiao Li smiled and said, "Dad, Mom, are you two still chatting so late? Today's wedding is still the last step." Lin Suying's face turned red. "Who told you this?" "I asked my aunt for advice." Xiao Li explained seriously, "My aunt said, bow to heaven and earth and bow to the high hall, and then the husband and wife will bow to each other before entering the bridal chamber." "You stop!" Lin Suying hurriedly covered Xyli's mouth. "Don't ask your aunt weird questions from now on. This is all an adult matter. Do you understand?" "But I am an adult too." Xiao Li said seriously, "I am walking outside now, and others respectfully call me Hammer King. Isn't this considered an adult?" Su Xian and Lin Suying both raised their foreheads. The two simply refused to explain and forcibly sent Xiao Li back to the room. Xiao Li was lying on the bed, looking at the two of them with big eyes. She knew that her parents were going to the wedding night, and what her aunt said was indeed right. From now on, if I don't understand something, I have to ask my aunt. In the wedding room with flickering candles, Lin Suying sat quietly in front of the wedding bed, her beautiful face covered by a red hijab. She was actually a little nervous at this moment. Her heartbeat was not as fast as when she was traveling through the four forbidden lands and across the two battlefields. Su Xian gently lifted the hijab. Looking at that impeccably beautiful face, even he felt a little dull, even though he had slept with her for countless days and nights. But at this moment, Lin Suying is the most beautiful. "Su Xian, I finally married you." Lin Suying's red lips parted slightly and she smiled like a flower. "It's so good, this feeling. From the moment you believed in me, it was doomed." Su Xian's body slowly pressed down, and the two of them clasped their fingers tightly, looking at each other deeply with watery eyes. The hot flames engulfed the clothes on both men's bodies. The burning passion intensifies the heat in the depths of the soul. The candlelight flickered wildly with the wonderful resonance of love. The swaying reflections in the night became more violent every time, until the two shadows completely merged into one, and the clouds and rain of harmonious music came to an end. Night, but a sleepless night. Early next morning, Su Xian walked out of the room with his head held high, then entered the kitchen and made 3 bowls of fragrant chicken noodle soup. Dad. Little Li chased after him after smelling the fragrance. It smells so good. Is this your first time cooking? In the past, at home, either her mother would cook the meals, or she would be tortured by junior sister Ching Ching. The old chicken soup life was one of Xiao Li's few psychological shadows. How does it taste? Su Xian asked. Tasty. Xiao Li drank all the soup and whispered, the chicken soup you made is the real chicken soup. Junior sister Ching Ching must not cook in the future. Soon, Lin Suiying also walked out of the room, with a rosy face and a bright smile. Compared to her usual indifference, she was extremely charming at this moment, exuding a different kind of charm in every move she made. Tisk, tisk, you are very diligent today. Looking at the chicken noodle soup on the table, Lin Suiying joked. That is. Su Xian smiled, the winner will control the kitchen in the morning, right, wife? Lin Suiying's face turned red and she glared at him fiercely, you still have the nerve to say it? She almost fell apart from the torment last night. This guy doesn't know how to show mercy at all. Eat noodles, eat noodles. Xiao Li was still there, and Su Xian didn't dare to say anything more. He brought a bowl of noodles and put it in front of his wife. Try my cooking. You will definitely want to eat it again. Only then did Lin Suiying smile. She took a sip of the soup first, a look of surprise flashed in her eyes, and then she quickly ate the entire bowl of noodles. After eating this bowl of noodles, my body felt much warmer. Even the pain from last night has eased a lot. It seems he is quite attentive. Lin Suiying secretly smiled in her heart, what she said just now was just a joke. How could she really be dissatisfied with Su Xian? It's not too late to be happy. Su Xian was also smiling in his heart. The spices made from the leaves of the world must be fragrant. On the wedding day last night, World Tree finally swallowed the entire Chaos Stone and completed a new round of evolution. Its branches, leaves, and fruits have all become treasures with their own benefits. Next, we only need to remove the 7 branches of the World Tree and use them as a foundation to take root in lowland. As a combat camp on lowland, the counterattack will definitely be much easier. Mom, Dad, I'm going to wash the dishes. After breakfast, Xiao Li took the initiative to clear the table, and left the space for Su Xian and Lin Suiying to get along in an obedient and sensible manner. Facing this quirky little guy, their eyes were full of doting. We are really a destined family. Lin Suiying smiled. 3 people who were not related by blood were closely related to each other because of a wonderful journey. This was not a blessing. She stretched out her hand in front of Su Xian, and a strange light loomed on the ring on her ring finger. The moment she put the ring on, Lin Suiying noticed the strangeness of the ring, but at that time it had more meaning as a milestone in their love. Now, we still have to return to reality. She could clearly feel that the strange power emitted by this ring fit her inexplicably, and it must have been tailor-made for her by Su Xian. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 416. This ring is made of Chaos Stone. Su Xian explained, I gave it the characteristic of virtual conversion, which just fits your mirror flower water moon sword technique. Chaos Stone? You gave it to me as a ring. At the celebration banquet held by the Blue Star Alliance not long ago, when Su Xian gave 4 Chaos Stone fragments to his disciples, she was also present and therefore learned about Chaos Stone. You should know that the value of just a small Chaos Stone fragment is equivalent to the superposition of countless Chaos Stones. How precious is a complete Chaos Stone? I'm afraid that mythical quality equipment is far less valuable than a Chaos Stone, right? I have one too. Su Xian raised his hand, also wearing a ring, slightly different from the one worn by Lin Suying, but the origin of the aura is the same. Lin Suying laughed dumbly. Yes, why did she make a fuss? Su Xian has always been like this, always able to come up with something that surprises her. I'll give it a try. The power of the Chaos Stone has an immersive magic. Lin Suying sensed the breath coming from the Chaos Stone, and the speed of the water moon factor in her body merging with her body further accelerated. Mirror Lake descended. She danced with a sword. The beautiful figure flickered back and forth on the lake. Su Xian smiled, drew out the thousand machine sword and rushed over, his blood rippling, impacting the sword shadow on the mirror lake. The two of them fought hundreds of moves in an instant. Without using the Chaos Stone and other means, Su Xian could feel obvious pressure. With the blessing of the Chaos Stone virtual and real, Su Ying's strength has improved a lot. The sword moves that constantly switched between virtual and real made him defenseless. It seemed like a fake move, but in fact it had a fierce murderous intent. It seemed like a real move, but it was just a fake shot. From beginning to end, the thousand machine sword in his hand never hit Su Ying once. Is this the power of the Chaos Stone? I'll try it too. Su Xian became interested and also accepted the blessing from the Chaos Stone. The blood-red Qinji sword instantly became much dimmer. There were more whirlpools on the sword body that could even swallow light. When the strange suction in the whirlpool appeared, Lin Suying's virtual and real sword was obviously affected. When both of them had the Chaos Stone, it would naturally depend on who had a deeper understanding. The battle became more intense. Fortunately, the barrier of the World Tree is strong enough now. Even if the two of them let go and fight, it would not affect other things in the Shuiyu Palace. No more fighting. Halfway through the battle, Lin Suying suddenly retracted the Shuiyu sword, the mirror lake dissipated, and she went on strike on the spot. What's wrong? Su Xian was puzzled. If we continue to fight, I will definitely lose. Lin Suying pouted, the virtual and real conversion depends on strong mental power and spatial perception. Your Chaos Stone keeps swallowing mental power and space. Of course, I can't beat you. She saw the key at a glance. Although she had the upper hand just now, she would definitely lose if she continued to fight. Because Su Xian's Chaos Stone black hole will continue to affect the space, like opening a small black hole, spreading and swallowing everything around. The larger the black hole, the stronger the swallowing power. The virtual and real method based on mental power and spatial laws can be said to be completely restrained by the black hole. Unless Lin Suying can defeat Su Xian at the beginning, as the black hole spreads, the former's hope of winning will become increasingly slim, until there is no chance of winning. With this ring, it will be easier to enter Lulin Star next. It is not shameful to lose to Su Xian. Lin Suying has already accepted this fact in her heart. She only has joy in her heart. With her current strength, if she meets the top king of the demon clan, Kai Sao, she will definitely be able to win easily. At noon, Su Xian summoned his disciples to the Shuiyu Palace again. The counterattack war is imminent. Naturally, he has to help his disciples to a big improvement. Except Zhang Mu, the other 8 disciples are all present. He asked the disciples to sit in a circle around him, including Lao Ba Wuxin, who was also forcibly called over. Lao Ba's strange ability played a big role on the battlefield. If they cooperated properly, they could even annihilate a large army without any injuries. Under Su Xian's guidance, the disciples sat in 8 directions around Su Xian. Calm your mind and concentrate. Su Xian's voice sounded in the disciples' ears. The disciples immediately gathered their mental power. Soon, they felt a soft breath wrapped around their bodies, and a gravitational force pulled their souls to another space. This feeling was very dangerous. But the disciples did not resist at all and maintained absolute trust in their teacher. Su Xian performed the Sky Spirit Road, an auxiliary forbidden technique that had no offensive ability. Concentrate. Su Xian formed seals with both hands. The vast mental power rushed straight into the sky. The mental imprint and the soul particles in the sky formed a road to the sky. Welcome to the Sky Spirit Road. The ethereal voice sounded in the ears of Su Xian and his disciples. Sky Spirit Road. What is that? The disciples were puzzled. When the Sky Spirit Road was formed, they also felt something, and their souls entered this wonderful world. This road is the road of soul trial. The ethereal voice sounded again. Through this road, the trialists can get soul rewards. Please do it according to your ability. If you force it, you will suffer a severe mental injury at best, and your soul will be scattered at worst. Remind you, once you set foot on the Sky Spirit Road, the 5 senses in your soul will also be closed. The trial is about to start. I wish all trial participants good luck. It is true. Su Xian understood. He had previously guessed that the Sky Spirit Road was a trial ticket left by a big boss in the Chaos Universe, and now it seems to be true. The big bosses in the Chaos Universe are unfathomable and can leave their inheritance in various worlds in the Chaos Universe in various ways. This big boss should be a soul-oriented god. He guessed in his heart that compared to the Death God who could forcibly insert the Trial Tower into various worlds and build the Tower of Despair in the Chaos Universe, the big boss who created the Sky Spirit Road should be weaker. I don't know how the strength between gods is divided. Is there a chance to kill a god with a mortal body for fun? The master will open the way for you first. Su Xian looked at the disciples and instructed, in the early stage of the Sky Spirit Road, the 5 senses are lost and communication is impossible. You don't have to feel burdened. Everyone is good at different things, just do what you can. After saying that, Su Xian took the lead and stepped onto the Sky Spirit Road. The moment he stepped onto the Sky Spirit Road, his vision, hearing, taste, smell, and touch all disappeared, and he fell into chaos. He immediately gathered his mental power. The gathered mental power became his third eye, but he only had a vague perception and it was difficult to see the road ahead. Interesting. Su Xian didn't care. Since it was a trial, there would naturally be tests. He calmed down and strode forward. Anyway, he didn't care about the result, so he just kept moving forward. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 417. Walking on the Kangkyang spiritual road, Su Xian could feel that his spiritual power was constantly increasing. Similarly, the spiritual pressure on Kangkyang spiritual road is gradually increasing. When the mental power and soul strength are not enough, they will be forced to squeeze out of the spiritual path. It is almost impossible to reach the end just by relying on the spiritual support of walking the spiritual path. You must understand something along the way, open up your spiritual shackles, and get a big improvement before you can complete this path. Interesting. Su Xian walked slowly. It was a bit difficult at first, but it became easier as he got further. Because all the feedback received from his disciples was returned to him. Coupled with the protection of Tai's Hangjing Xinlian, it can be said that it is like walking on flat ground. As one pass after another was passed, the 5 senses of the soul body gradually recovered. Looking at the back of the spiritual road, the disciples were moving forward with difficulty. He made a visual inspection and found that the spiritual path was about 10,000 meters long, with the end point hidden deep in the clouds and mist, unable to be seen or felt. His current position is at the 3rd level close to the 4th level. The disciples have only just passed the 1st level. The disciple Lao Wu Miao Tian who has traveled the farthest so far. Every time Miao Tian took a step, lotus blossoms bloomed around him, protecting him and resisting most of the mental impact. After all, Lao Wu is the longest-lived disciple. Having experienced various pains such as life, separation, and death, his mentality is far beyond what other disciples can compare with. Following Miao Tian was Xiao Li. Although Xiao Li's heart is not good enough and he is still a naive child, his mental strength is better than Miao Tian's, and he seems relaxed. After Xiao Li is the third child Xianyu and Qingqing. As an elemental mage and alchemist, Qingqing also has strong mental strength, and the first few levels are not difficult for her. Then there is Xiaoqi Nicola Lin. Lin is still the lowest among all the disciples, but she is born with the eye of prophecy and specializes in the art of divination, and her control over mental power is more sophisticated than other disciples. With 1 point of mental power, other disciples may only be able to play half of the role, but she can equal 1 to 2. Behind Lin is the little girl Juya who was the last to enter. As a special type of summoner, Yuya's mental power can only be regarded as quite satisfactory, and is only exceptionally powerful with the blessing of the moonlight of the chaotic universe. Next up is the fourth child, Sun Xiaokong. In front of many weird disciples, Sun Xiaokong seemed to be a bit on the line. It seemed that only the battlefield was his final destination. However, Su Xian never looked down upon this disciple. In terms of tenacity, among the many disciples, only Zhang Mu can match him. In this long-term battle on the sky spiritual road, it is not certain who will win. At this time, Sun Xiaokong had also passed the first threshold of 10,000 meters. Finally there are Lao Lu and Lao Bie. Lao Lu was confused and ignorant, and fell into confusion from time to time, almost like a lost child. Lao Bie was still sitting at the starting position, motionless. In this way, the disciples kept moving forward on the spiritual path of the sky. Every time you pass a threshold, your mental strength will be greatly improved. Even if they fail to reach the destination in the end, the process of walking the spiritual path is enough for them to benefit a lot. After walking, Su Xian came to the fifth threshold. Standing in front of the threshold, he could clearly feel that this was a watershed, and the sense of oppression was much stronger than before. Of course, that is only relative to disciples. In front of Su Xian, this is still a broad road that can be walked casually. Keep going. The seventh path. The eighth path. After passing the eighth threshold, Su Xian finally saw the end point. Looking back at the disciples, Miao Tian, the fifth old man, has already reached the fifth threshold, and Xiao Li is following closely behind, not too far apart. Except for Lao Lu and Lao Bie, the other disciples have recovered their 5 senses. The moment he stepped into the fifth threshold, powerful mental pressure came, and the supreme serenity lotus around Miao Tian instantly shattered, and his soul was in turmoil. He saw blue halos falling continuously over the spiritual road. Every circle of light would severely constrain his sea of consciousness. Hold it! Hold it! Miao Tian screamed in his heart. If he was the first to be eliminated, he would lose face. He had already passed the peak period of his talent and could not compare with other disciples on the path of cultivation. But he didn't want to lose at this point. He had been mad for more than 100 years and suffered from the torture of his second personality for so long, but he persisted. What does this level of mental oppression mean to him? Break it for me. Miao Tian took a step forward, and a huge meditation lotus bloomed under his feet, finally breaking the shackles of the aperture. The aperture dissipates. At the critical moment, Miao Tian took a step further on the supreme meditation lotus and broke through the fifth threshold. He seemed to have some more insights in his heart. Since his rebirth, his mentality has become indifferent. He doesn't care about things like face and vanity at all. With this mentality, his life has indeed become much easier. But now he found that after being indifferent for a long time, he even lost the will to win in his cultivation. He was so high-spirited in the past, leaving behind the legend of reversing the throne and being crowned king. When he was young, he was not afraid of anything, competed with King Wuan on the same stage, traveled across the battlefield, and made countless meritorious deeds. Those were indeed just past glories, no need to mention them again, but now he doesn't care about winning or losing too lightly, and he doesn't care about being compared with a group of classmates who are much younger than him. I shouldn't be such a person. Even if it seems too insignificant, you still have to fight for what you should fight for, otherwise you will never be able to reach a stronger peak in your life. Boom. At this moment, Miao Tian's spirit seemed to be sublimated. He saw the boundary between himself and the future more clearly, and the road under his feet became much easier. Hey, the fifth junior brother is shining. Xylee was not far behind Miao Tian. Seeing the light on Miao Tian, she also chased after him excitedly. The moment she stepped into the threshold, the light circle fell. A powerful mental restraint enveloped Xylee. At that moment, a gray light flashed in Xylee's eyes, and her eyes seemed to turn into extinguished stars, and then a painful face appeared. A vast mental force burst out. In an instant, she broke free from the restraints and staggered forward, but after only 2 steps, her soul fell from the sky spirit road and disappeared. Su Xian frowned and looked at the disappearing Xylee. The mental fluctuations emitted from Xylee just now were very abnormal, with a strong resistance. Something must have happened. He didn't expect that Xylee would be the first to fall off the spiritual path. Miao Tian also stood there in a daze. The mental shock just now made him feel frightened, as if something terrible had swept him away. If he hadn't just broken through, he would have been swept down directly. The disciples behind Xylee also became more cautious. Currently, the most recognized disciple is the second senior sister Xylee. If even the second senior sister fell, what would they do? 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 418. After Xiao Li fell, Xianyu and Qingqing followed closely behind, and finally stepped into the 5th threshold. What a strong sense of oppression. The moment she stepped into the threshold, Xianyu and Qingqing felt a strong restraint, but she still managed to carry it through with her good mental strength. This surprised Su Xian, who was watching the disciples. Qingqing has passed, but Xylee can't. Logically speaking, Xiao Li's mental power is much stronger than Qingqing's. Even if Qingqing's application of mental power is more clever than Xiao Li's, it is not enough to close the gap. From this point of view, if you want to completely cross the spiritual path of the sky, there are certain requirements for your character. With Xiao Li's character, he would definitely not be able to pass a slightly more powerful illusion level. From a certain perspective, this is also a consideration of the strength of the soul. After passing the 5th threshold, Qingqing walked 10,000 meters with difficulty. When he came to the 6th threshold, his soul body had become erratic, and it was obvious that he could no longer hold on. Lao Wu, why don't you go over? She saw Miao Tian stopping in front of the 6th threshold and asked with a smile. I'm afraid it won't work. Miao Tian smiled bitterly. 60,000 meters is already my limit. Stepping over this threshold means falling. Yes. Xianyu and Qingqing looked forward. I don't know how long this road is. Only at this time can we feel the gap between us and the teacher. I'm afraid the teacher is already waiting for us at the finish line. It's impossible to see the teacher. Miao Tian lamented. When I started, I always thought about chasing or even surpassing the teacher, but now I realize that we are getting further and further away, and we cannot catch up at all. But this trip was worth it, at least I learned something. He is confident that after this breakthrough in Xingxing and enhanced soul power, he has a great chance of breaking through to the 3rd realm of kingship when he returns. After the words fell, Miao Tian stepped into the 6th threshold. Accompanied by a scream. Miao Tian's soul also fell from the sky spiritual path and disappeared. Yes, it's not a loss. Xianyu and Qingqing also followed in calmly, but as expected, she also fell at the 6th threshold. Her mentality has always been very peaceful, especially after following Su Xian, her mentality rarely fluctuates. This is also the basic quality of an alchemist. The most powerful alchemists in history were either extremely crazy characters or terrifyingly calm geniuses. The third child belongs to the latter. Of course, if an alchemist who is usually extremely calm becomes crazy, it will be even more terrifying. In this field, there is a thin line between madness and genius. At present, there is nothing worth her madness. The only person in this world who is truly worthy of her madness is probably the teacher who personally sent her to the top. Ching Ching and Lao Wu also fell down. Before the finish line of 90,000 meters, Su Xian looked at his disciples and sighed in his heart. It seems that it will be difficult for other disciples to cross the sixth threshold. At this time, Xiao Qi Nicole Ellen and Xiao Zhuya also arrived at the fifth threshold. Seventh senior sister, why don't you leave? Looking at Lin, who was standing in front of the fifth threshold, Miss Yuya was shocked. She didn't expect that the young seventh senior sister could be so powerful. His mental strength is obviously not very strong, but he has reached this point abruptly. You go there first. Lin was very cautious and carefully sensed the breadth of the fifth threshold. She will observe carefully every time she crosses a threshold to find out the best way to deal with it, and even predict the good or bad luck of her journey. With the extremely exquisite application of spiritual power, she was able to travel 50,000 miles of spiritual path. Then I'll pass first, senior sister, be careful. Miss Yuya didn't think much about it. She didn't have the ability as powerful as the seventh senior sister, so she couldn't tell anything even if she looked at it. One step across the threshold. Powerful soul oppression came instantly. The sudden impact caused Yuya to almost fall down the sky spiritual path, but the moonlight fell from her body, forming a mental shield that blocked the impact. The power of the abyssal spirit. Su Xian watched with interest. Strictly speaking, the power of the abyss spirit body was considered a type of spiritual power. He didn't expect Yuya to be able to summon the power of the spirit body to protect himself here. Mental shocks kept coming. Yuya also has different spiritual body powers displayed on her body. Those spirits guard the crescent moon and prevent it from falling. Su Xian could feel that these spiritual bodies themselves were very powerful. If these spiritual bodies could exert their full power, it would not be difficult to reach the end. It's a pity that Crescent Moon Girl is too weak to withstand the complete summons of the spirit body. With the protection of her spiritual body, Crescent Moon Girl finally passed the fifth threshold. At the same time, Xiaoqi Nicole Ellen also took a crucial step. The pressure is coming. Xiaoqi's whole body star chart is displayed. Compared to other disciples, Xiaoqi behaved the most rationally. Even if the pressure made her soul shake, she remained calm and calmly manipulated the star map to resist. It seems that Lin has learned a lot from Moira. Su Xian didn't spend much time teaching Lin, but Moira was more like a competent teacher. When she was in the elves, Lin was still a timid crybaby. Now I can deal with the crisis calmly on my own. As a great prophet, a person who strategizes and wins thousands of miles away, staying rational and calm is a necessary quality. Because any mistake made by the great prophet may lead to the death of countless lives. Although Lin is only 7 years old, after experiencing a series of events such as childhood suffering, the tragic death of her loved ones, the chaos of her tribe, and surviving a catastrophe, she has understood many worldly truths that her peers do not understand. With the exquisite control of the star map, Lin successfully passed the fifth threshold. After passing it, she and Miss Yuya walked another 10,000 meters with difficulty and came to the sixth threshold. Xianyu and Qingqing and Miao Tian both fell at the sixth threshold. The two also knew the difficulty. Lin stood in front of the threshold and began a new round of thinking. Miss Yuya continued to step in. What surprised Su Xian was that Miss Yuya actually successfully passed the sixth threshold. Although she fell off the spiritual road at the moment of passing, it was enough to prove Yuya's strength. The protection of the abyss spirit is really powerful. Su Xian has been observing. He can clearly see that the spiritual protection of Uia is different every time it appears. If Uia can really summon all the spirits one day, that is definitely a terrifying combat power that can sweep the battlefield. Xiaoqi is almost the same. With perfect mental power application, he barely passed the 6th threshold, but fell down instantly after passing it. This record has made Su Xian very satisfied. You have to know that Xiaoqi is only 7 years old. Even though she is an elf and her bloodline is more special, it still cannot cover up her own brilliance. Xiaoqi lost because of her insufficient realm and exhausted energy. If Xiaoqi had reached the Marquisate realm, the result would be completely different. At least she could have passed the 8th threshold and even reached the end. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 419. With the fall of Xiao Kailin and Xiao Zhuya, only 3 of the 8 major disciples were left. Sun Xiaokong worked steadily all the way and finally reached the 5th threshold. And Lao Ba, who had been staying at the starting point, finally started to move. With this move, he broke 4 thresholds in succession at an extremely fast speed and walked 50,000 meters easily. The first 4 thresholds can hardly even hinder him. As for Lao Lu, he was still moving forward leisurely, as if he was traveling around the mountains and rivers. He didn't seem to care about this at all, and finally fell at the 3rd threshold. Created the worst record among the disciples. Su Xian didn't care about it either. Lao Lu originally didn't value the bones and understanding, nor did he care much about spiritual practice. The Yuanling clan had a special physique. As long as they could continue to evolve, all indicators would grow in all directions. Practicing a certain aspect alone is a constraint for them. In this way, only the 4th child, Sun Xiaokong, and the 8th child are left. Standing in front of the threshold, Sun Xiaokong looked grave. This is my chance. Dingai used to be a little arrogant, and he naturally had his own pride in his heart. He was unwilling to give up just like that. This was an excellent opportunity for him to surpass other students, and he must cherish it. The pride in his heart did not allow him to behave mediocrely. The mental pressure on the spiritual road made him extremely painful, but he always gritted his teeth and persisted. Every time he experienced severe pain, his soul would become more solid. This process is excruciating. But he surprisingly liked this feeling. Just like killing an enemy on the battlefield, killing until you are scarred and on the verge of collapse, but your heart is still full of fighting spirit. The physical pain cannot stop the spiritual joy. In his mind, walking this spiritual path is an invisible war. He will never allow himself to have any emotion of retreat, and his life principle of fighting to the end will never be overturned at any place or at any time. War. Sun Xiaokong roared angrily, and his soul turned into red, and he suddenly rushed into the 5th threshold. The pressure is coming. He kept breaking free from the shackles of the aperture, and his soul was burning with increasingly intense red flames. It was his concentrated fighting spirit and the unyielding heart deep in his soul. It is the fearless spirit that fights to the end. Every time he was about to fall, his crumbling soul would always hold on at the critical moment, once, twice, 3 times. Eventually, the halo fades. Sun Xiaokong successfully passed the 5th threshold. It actually passed. Su Xianneng felt that Sun Xiaokong's mental strength had also undergone a transformation, and he had benefited the most among the disciples. Even more exaggerated than Sun Xiaokong is Lao Ba. When Sun Xiaokong crossed the 5th threshold, Lao Ba Wuxin had already walked 80,000 meters and came to the 8th threshold. Just when Su Xian thought that Lao Ba might create a miracle, Lao Ba fell on the 8th threshold. The moment he fell into the spiritual path, a powerful resentment burst out. Su Xian was shocked by such resentment. Among the many disciples, the one he least understood was the careless Lao Ba. There was nothing unusual about Lao Ba from his usual words and deeds. Why does Lao Ba harbor such deep resentment in his heart? Is it because of that incident? In terms of experiences, the most tragic of all the disciples was Wu Xian. He almost died before he was born. The life he finally saved was the result of his mother's desperate efforts. He lost his mother when he was born, and he is a deformed person with no intention or form. He grew up in a terrifying and dark place like the source of plague. No friends, no relatives, no childhood, not even many memories of life. Some are just miserable. It is normal for Lao Ba to have resentment in his heart. But who should this resentment be directed against? The source of the plague in the Forbidden Land has been destroyed, and the spreader of the plague has been killed. The great revenge has been avenged. Is it time to let go of the resentment? Could it be that Lao Ba still blames the human race for not rescuing him? This matter must be clarified. Su Xian silently remembered it in his heart. It seemed like I had to have a talk with Wu Xian after I got back, and at least understand where this resentment came from. If he hadn't led his disciples into the Kangkayang spiritual path, he might not have been able to discover that the disciples had various problems. Calm your mind. At this time, only one disciple, Sun Xiaokong, was left on the entire spiritual path. Sun Xiaokong looked forward firmly. When he realized that he was the only one left, he was not afraid. Instead, he was more motivated than ever. The red flame burning with fighting intent made his soul become more and more dazzling. The sixth threshold also failed to stop him. You must know that Miao Tian, Xiao Li, Qing Qing, Xiao Qi, and Yu Ya Girl have all passed the 60,000-meter journey before and after, but Sun Xiaokong was even better. In this kind of training, Sun Xiaokong's tenacity was fully demonstrated as he became more and more courageous as he fought. He seemed to have found a balance of spiritual strength in the midst of hardship. But that's about it. After all, Sun Xiaokong was still in the realm of feudal lord. Even if he was a 9th-level feudal lord, there was still an essential gap between him and the feudal king. In the end, he still fell at the 7th threshold. This is the end of the journey of the 8 disciples on the spiritual road to the sky. This trip was fruitful. Their mental strength has been improved, and they have also found some weaknesses in their own souls. The return Su Xian received has also made his mental strength even higher. After returning to the real world, you should be able to break through the 3rd stage of the king's origin realm. Let me see what the final reward is. Su Xian crossed the last threshold in one step. Before the light circle fell, his soul body shook, and the light circle was completely dispersed, and the last threshold was easily shattered by him. Trialist, congratulations on walking through the 90,000-meter Sky Spirit Road. You can get the final reward. Buzz. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, 3 light balls, 1 large and 2 small, appeared in front of him. The large light ball contained a legacy. This was also what Su Xian expected. The big man stayed in the small world for the trial, and the legacy was necessary, but this thing had no appeal to him. It was even a bit useless. Because spiritual heritage cannot be taken away, it can only be absorbed on this Sky Spirit Road. The other 2 light balls, the left one is a compressed and pure soul energy, which can nourish the soul after absorption. The light ball on the right is a trace of chaos. This thing can allow the top king-level strongmen to comprehend the origin of chaos and greatly increase their chances of being promoted to demigods. Unfortunately, it cannot be taken away. As long as the Sky Spirit Road disappears and the soul body returns to reality, these rewards will automatically be included in the spiritual power of the tria list. That's it. Su Xian had no choice but to choose the pure soul energy. At that moment, the rich energy nourished his soul, and his mental power continued to surge. The improvement of the soul also improved the control of the body and the perception of the chaotic universe. Boom! The sky spirit road dissipated. The soul returned to reality. At the moment of returning, Su Xian's body instantly burst out with a powerful aura. The third stage of the king's origin realm is a natural result. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 420. The third stage of the kingship, the origin realm. Use the trace life origin born in the inner world to sense the chaotic origin of the chaotic universe. When you control enough chaotic origins and are able to communicate with the chaotic universe, you are in the semi-god realm. However, even in the semi-god realm, you must rely on the life world to survive. Only when you step into the divine realm and your body and soul can fully adapt to and accept the environment of the chaotic universe, can you leave the life world and survive independently. The chaotic universe is vast and boundless. Whether it is Lowland Star or Blue Star, if you only rely on technological means, you can't find any life world outside the two realms. When you reach the divine realm, technological means will be insignificant in front of extraordinary power. After absorbing the perception, Su Xian looked at the disciples. The disciples who came back from the spiritual road had different expressions, especially Xiaoli, who was terribly pale. Lao Ba's body was also shaking slightly. Even if you can't see his face under the mask, you can feel his fluctuating mood at the moment. The other disciples' words were normal, as they were all absorbing the insights they had gained from the spiritual road. Xiaoli? Are you okay? Su Xian came to Xiaoli's side. The latter was still a little frightened. Teacher, I'm scared. In front of other disciples, Xiaoli still called Su Xian teacher. What did you see in the spiritual road? Su Xian asked. Xiaoli closed her eyes, and the previous scenes flashed through her mind. I seemed to have a dream, in which I grew up and became very powerful. But, recalling, she suddenly covered her head and screamed in pain. Teacher, I can't remember it, I'm scared. The pain in her mind made Xiaoli unwilling to recall the memories on the spiritual road. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Su Xian gently embraced him in his arms, and his gentle spiritual power soothed Xiaoli's heart, comforting him. If you are afraid, don't think about it. I'm here, nothing will happen. Yet. Xiaoli's voice was much weaker, like a frightened bird, curled up in Su Xian's arms. The other disciples also realized that something was wrong, but did not ask more. They were not stupid. Xiaoli was so strong at such a young age, so there must be a secret, and it might even involve the legendary gods. But they didn't care. If Xiaoli got into trouble one day, as long as Xiaoli didn't make a principled mistake, as fellow disciples, they would only stand firmly on Xiaoli's side. Even gods couldn't change their positions. Xiaoli fell asleep in Su Xian's arms, and the other disciples gradually completed their insights. Boom! A strong breath burst out from the fifth disciple Miao Tian. After realizing his true heart, Miao Tian, who had been troubled for many years, finally showed the demeanor of the King of Eight Desolations again and finally entered the third stage of the King realm. Other disciples also gained something. Due to the improvement of spiritual power, their control over themselves and their understanding of the chaotic universe have been enhanced, and their realms have more or less improved. Even the third brother Xianyuan Qingqing, who paid the least attention to cultivation, has entered the 6th grade Marquis realm with the accumulation of various resources. The fourth brother Sun Xiaokong is only one step away from entering the King realm. The sixth brother is the most delusion-ridden. He basically has no gains this time, but with the continuous digestion of the inheritance of the gods and the blessing of the original spirit ancestor blood, his combat power can also be compared with the second stage of the King realm. Xiao Kailan is too young and currently has the lowest realm, but he has also been enlightened and accumulated to the Tianhe realm. The combat power of the eighth brother cannot be measured by common sense. Without relying on soul particles, the eighth brother may not even be able to beat ordinary Marquis, but in places like the battlefield where soul particles are rich, with the help of others, he can become a person who controls the battlefield. The fighting power of Little 9 Crescent Moon Girl also depends on the environment. Without the blessing of the moonlight of the chaotic universe, Crescent Moon's strength is pitifully weak, but once it absorbs the moonlight energy and summons the spirit body, it is enough to be comparable to an ordinary king. Wuxin, come here. Su Xian glanced around and called Wuxin to the training room alone. Wuxin still obeyed Su Xian's words, but just ignored others. The eyes of other disciples fell on Wuxin. Since Lao Ba entered the sect, they have more or less tried to talk to Lao Ba, but got no response. They have never even seen what Lao Ba looks like. No matter when and where, Lao Ba has never taken off his mask. Of course, even so, they have never discriminated against this mysterious fellow disciple. In their hearts, Lao Ba is synonymous with mystery. Masks and coffins, as well as weird and unpredictable abilities. All represent mystery. Xiao Kong, you were the last one to wake up, right? Did you see what happened to Lao Ba? After Su Xian and Wu Xian entered the training room, Xian Yu and Qing Qing asked curiously. He is very strong. Sun Xiao Kong recalled the scene on the spiritual road. When you fell, he was still at the starting point, but as soon as he moved, he crossed 70,000 meters continuously. In the end, he seemed to fall at the 8th threshold. What? The disciples were shocked. Lao Ba is so powerful. You know, the most powerful among them only barely passed the 6th threshold, and they didn't expect Lao Ba to leave them so far behind. Sun Xiao Kong continued, when Lao Ba fell, I felt a strong resentment. Maybe that's why the teacher called him to talk alone. Resentment. The disciples were all puzzled and were speculating in their hearts. Lao Ba's life experience is unknown. Could it be that he has some ulterior secret hidden in his heart? In the training room, Su Xian sat on the chair as usual, looking at Lao Ba calmly. Wuxin, if you have anything to tell me, don't hold it in alone. No. Wuxin shook his head, and a hoarse voice came from his stomach. I feel your resentment. Su Suandeo, I don't know whether you have hidden this resentment in your heart before, or whether this world is not so satisfactory to you. But I hope you can tell the truth, and you have seen that no matter what happens in the world, at least here, under my Su Xian sect, my fellow disciples and brothers will treat you sincerely. I hope you will not betray our trust. Wuxin lowered his head, untied the rope tied to his body, took out the coffin containing his mother's body, and put it down carefully. He opened the coffin lid. Due to the purification wood, the body inside is still well preserved. Even. Su Xian frowned. He actually felt a breath of life. When Wu Xian's mother died, not only was her vitality exhausted, but her soul was corroded by the Black Plague. In order to take care of Wu Xian as a baby, she even swallowed a potion at the last moment to change her body into a semi-alchemy doll. Su Xian tried, but even the forbidden technique wood reincarnation could not save Wu Xian's mother. But I didn't want to do this impossible thing unintentionally. But, where does this resentment come from?